The Witch of Veracruz. This is a true story. My name is Lucia Martinez, and in the summer of 2014, when I was 15 years old, I worked for two women in Veracruz. The job paid well, too well, and I should have known that when something seems too good to be true, it usually is a trap. On the final night when we opened the refrigerator on the second floor, I saw something that means I'll never sleep peacefully again, and now, 10 years later, I think they've found where I live. But to understand why I'm recording this, why I need you to know the truth before it's too late, I have to start from the beginning. Pause. 2 seconds of absolute silence. Sound wind howling transitioning to tense background music. Veracruz, Mexico, June 2014. I wasn't a dreamer. At 15, I'd grown accustomed to watching my 3 younger brothers go to bed hungry most nights, to seeing my mother work 3 jobs and still not earn enough for rent. School had become a luxury I couldn't afford, not when every peso counted, not when being the oldest meant carrying weight that should have been too heavy for my shoulders. But I had something else, something my grandmother called a gift, though it never felt like one. I saw patterns. When someone lied, I knew from the way their eyes shifted, from how their hands moved just slightly wrong. When I walked into a room, I felt wrongness before my brain could process why. My grandmother used to say, touching my face with her weathered hands, "You have the sight, mija, but don't trust it too much. Sometimes what you see will make you wish you were blind." I never understood what she meant, not until that summer. Carmen Ortega was 17 when I met her outside the laundromat, where she lived in a single room behind the washing machines. Her son Diego slept in a cardboard box lined with fabric, and every morning I'd see her eyes, hollow from another sleepless night, dark, with the kind of desperation that makes people do things they know they shouldn't. Her family had thrown her out when they discovered she was pregnant. No father came forward. No relatives offered help. She had Diego, she had that room, and she had the crushing knowledge that she would do absolutely anything to keep her son alive. "Lucia," she said one morning, her voice shaking but determined, "I heard about work. 2 positions, housekeeping. The pay is 3 times the normal rate." My instinct screamed immediately. That sensation my grandmother had warned me about, that knowing when something was deeply wrong, began ringing so loud I could barely hear Carmen's next words. But then I looked into Carmen's eyes and saw something that broke through my fear. Hope, desperate, fragile hope that if I said no would shatter into nothing. And I thought of my own brothers, of my mother's bent back, of all the meals we'd skipped. "Where?" I heard myself ask. "Near Poza Rica, live-in position, Monday through Friday. We'd stay there." "What about Diego?" Her face fell. "I'd have to leave him with my mother-in-law. She doesn't like me, but she loves him. It's only 5 days a week, Lucia. 5 days to earn what would take a month anywhere else." I should have said no. Every fiber of my being screamed to refuse to walk away, to let Carmen find someone else. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because when you're drowning and someone throws you a rope, you don't ask why it looks frayed. You just grab on. "Okay," I whispered. "When do we start?" Her relief was so palpable, it almost made me forget the dread pooling in my stomach. Almost. 2 days later, we boarded a bus at dawn. 2 hours of winding roads through countryside that gradually transformed from familiar to foreign. The farther we traveled from town, the more the landscape changed, not dramatically but subtly, like stepping from one world into another through a veil you don't notice until you're already through. I pressed my face against the window, watching. The first sign came quietly, no birds. We passed through what should have been prime territory for morning bird calls, trees thick with leaves, telephone wires perfect for perching, but the sky remained empty. The branches stayed still. "Weird," I murmured. Carmen looked up from checking her phone for the 100th time, hoping for photos of Diego. "What? No birds? Do you see any birds?" She glanced out briefly. "It's hot. They're probably hiding in the shade." A logical explanation. Easy to accept. I tried to accept it, but that feeling wouldn't stop. After the bus, we took a taxi for 30 minutes deeper into rural territory. The driver was a middle-aged man with calloused hands and a face that had seen too much sun. He kept glancing at us in the rearview mirror, long looks that lasted too long, that held something I couldn't quite read. "You girls sure you want to go there?" he asked suddenly. "Yes," Carmen answered quickly. "Why?" He didn't elaborate, just returned his eyes to the road. But that sound, that non-committal grunt, carried the weight of something unspoken. Regret, maybe, or pity. I leaned forward. "Is there something wrong with the house?" "I didn't say that. But I just drive where people pay me to drive, miss." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What they do when they get there is their business." The way he said their business made my skin prickle. We arrived at a large iron gate just before noon on June 15th. Behind it stood a colonial-style mansion, 2 stories, white walls, peeling in long strips, red tile roof covered in moss and creeping vines. Large windows gaped like empty eye sockets, somehow darker inside than the shadows outside. The taxi driver pulled up to the gate and stopped. Didn't get out to open it, didn't turn off the engine. "This is it," he said. His eyes met mine in the mirror one last time. "You can still change your mind." Carmen was already opening her door, pulling out her bag. I wanted to say yes, wanted to tell him to take us back, wanted to obey every instinct that was now screaming at full volume in my head. But I looked at Carmen's face, at the determination there, the hope, and I couldn't do it. "Thank you for the ride," I said, climbing out. As we walked toward the gate with our bags, I heard him mutter something that might have been "God help you," before driving away. The moment we stepped through that gate, the air changed. It became dense, pressing down on my chest with each breath. Like the atmosphere itself was warning us to turn back. "You feel that?" I whispered to Carmen. "Feel what?" "The air, it's different." She laughed, but it sounded nervous. "It's just humidity, Lucia, don't scare me." Another logical explanation, another reason to ignore what I felt. I tried, I really tried. The gate creaked open, we hadn't touched it, and an old man appeared. 70 at least, spine bent from decades of labor, skin dark and weathered from sun. But his eyes were sharp, almost painfully alert, and when they landed on us, I saw something that made my breath catch. Sadness. Deep, bottomless sadness. "Las señoras are waiting," he said softly. Then lower, almost under his breath, "Ojalá que Dios las proteja." May God protect you. Why would he say that? We were just 2 girls looking for work. "I'm Don Miguel," he continued, opening the gate wider. "The gardener, come." We followed him through the garden. I counted 5 dogs lying in the shade of various trees, large dogs, strong breeds that should have bounded up to investigate strangers. But they didn't. They lay completely still, watching us with eyes that seemed empty. Not hostile, not friendly, just empty, like puppets that had forgotten how to move. "Are the dogs sick?" Carmen asked. Don Miguel didn't look at her. "No, they've learned to be quiet." The phrasing stopped me. Not been taught, that would imply training, but learned, which meant they'd figured it out themselves through experience. What experience teaches dogs to lie motionless when strangers approach? The garden itself was immaculate. Every hedge precisely trimmed, every flower bed perfectly weeded, every path swept clean. It looked like a garden from a magazine, but it felt like a graveyard, beautiful and dead. And that smell. God, that smell. Sweet and cloying like flowers left too long in a vase until the water turns brown and the stems begin to rot. Underneath it something else, copper and iron like old coins left in blood. The front door stood open. Don Miguel gestured us inside, but he didn't follow. As we crossed the threshold, I heard him whisper something that might have been a prayer. The interior was darker than it should have been. Large windows lined every wall, but somehow the sunlight couldn't penetrate properly. It was as if the darkness inside was denser than normal shadow, heavier, capable of pushing light back outside where it belonged. "Buenos dias, muchachas." 2 women stood in the living room waiting. They'd been standing there the whole time, I realized. Not just arrived. but positioned like actors on a stage set for our entrance. The first woman, Señora Valdez, I'd learned was perhaps 50, with black hair so long it reached her waist. Too long for a woman her age. Her skin had a grayish quality, not from age, but from an absence of something vital, like she'd been drained of color. Around her neck hung a silver pendant carved with a symbol I didn't recognize, a bird with too many wings. But her eyes, Jesus Christ, her eyes. They were too bright, almost luminous in the dim room, as if lit from behind by something that shouldn't exist in a human skull. The second woman, Señora Dominguez, was Valdez's opposite in appearance. Shorter, rounder, with cropped gray hair and a pleasant smile. She looked like someone's grandmother, the kind who'd offer cookies and pinch your cheeks, except for her eyes. Same impossible brightness. Same inhuman quality. "Welcome," Valdez said. Her voice was smooth as honey, but somehow it made my skin crawl. "You've arrived. Not, 'We've been waiting for you,' or 'Thank you for coming.' You've arrived. Like it was fate. Like it was inevitable. Like they'd known all along we'd be standing here no matter what choices we thought we'd made along the way." "Thank you for the opportunity," Carmen said, her voice small. Valdez smiled. When her lips pulled back, I saw her teeth perfectly white. Too white. Not the white of good hygiene, but the white of bones bleached clean by sun and time. Why am I thinking about bones? The thought flashed through my mind, unbidden. "Come," Dominguez said warmly. "Let us show you your room and explain the household rules." We followed them through the house. Every room we passed felt wrong in ways I couldn't articulate. Furniture arranged in patterns that almost made sense but didn't quite. Mirrors covered with red cloth. Crosses that had been removed, leaving cleaner rectangles on walls yellowed by age and smoke. Our room was at the back of the house, small, with 2 twin beds, a dresser, and a tiny window that looked directly at a wall, not out toward the garden or the road. Just a wall close enough to touch. "You'll sleep here," Valdez said. "The work is simple. Clean, cook, launder. We have few needs." "We sleep during the day," Dominguez added, still smiling. "We work at night. You'll do your tasks while we rest. It's important you don't make noise while we sleep. Work at night, sleep during day, inverted, wrong." "What kind of work do you do?" I asked before I could stop myself. Valdez turned to look at me. She didn't blink, just stared for 5, 10, 15 seconds while my heart hammered against my ribs. Our work child. That should have been the moment we left. That should have been when I grabbed Carmen's hand and ran. But Dominguez was already listing the rules, and her cheerful voice made everything sound so reasonable, so normal. "Don't enter the second-floor rooms unless called. Don't go into the garden after 6 in the evening. And most importantly," she paused, looking directly at me, "under no circumstances should you open the refrigerator in Señora Valdez's room." The way she said it. Not "please don't" or "we'd prefer if you didn't." Under no circumstances. Why mention the refrigerator at all if they didn't want us thinking about it? Why plant that seed of curiosity unless they wanted it to grow? "Do you understand?" Valdez asked. We both nodded. "Good. You start tomorrow morning. We'll be sleeping. Don't disturb us." They left us alone in the small room. As soon as the door closed, Carmen collapsed onto one of the beds. "This is going to be fine," she said, trying to convince herself. "It's just housekeeping. We can do this for 5 days a week. Think of the money, Lucia." I sat on the other bed and looked around the room. The door had no lock on the inside. The window had been nailed shut. I could see where someone had driven nails through the frame. On the wall above my bed there was a faded rectangle where something had hung. A crucifix, probably judged by the shape. Someone had removed all the protective symbols from this room. "Lucia," Carmen's voice was uncertain. "You're scaring me. What's wrong?" Everything I wanted to say, everything is wrong. The empty sky, the silent dogs, the women with impossible eyes, the warning from the gardener, the crosses removed, the locked window. But I looked at her exhausted face and thought about little Diego sleeping in a cardboard box, and I swallowed all those words. "Nothing," I lied, "just tired from the trip." That night I couldn't sleep. Carmen passed out immediately, the sleep of the exhausted and desperate, but I lay awake staring at the ceiling and listening. Around 2 in the morning I heard footsteps above us. Not regular walking, but something else. Drag, step, like someone pulling a dead leg behind them. Then faint but unmistakable, a child crying. The sound was distant, muffled, as if coming from very far away or from underneath something heavy. I sat up slowly, trying not to wake Carmen. The tiny window didn't offer much of a view, but there was a narrow gap at the edge where I could see a sliver of the garden behind the house. 2 figures stood in the moonlight, perfectly still. In the center of what I could now see was a circle drawn in the dirt. When had they drawn that? It hadn't been there earlier. Valdez and Dominguez. They stood facing each other, hands raised, mouths moving. I couldn't hear the words, but I could feel them, vibrations in the air rhythm in my bones. This wasn't Spanish. This wasn't any language I recognized. And the shadows. God, the shadows were wrong. Moonlight was shining directly on them, so their shadows should have stretched toward the house. But they didn't. The shadows moved independently, writhing like living things, stretching in the wrong directions as if following different laws of physics. The crying sound grew louder, not from the house, from the ground, from beneath where the 2 women stood. I backed away from the window, heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. It's nothing, I told myself, just their religion. People have different beliefs. The shadows are just tricks of light. Old houses make weird sounds. The crying is probably coming from somewhere else, carried on the wind. Logic, reason, rational explanations. But deep down I knew better. I crawled back into bed and pulled the thin blanket over my head like a child hiding from monsters. I didn't sleep. I just lay there counting my heartbeats until the sun finally rose and made me feel foolish for being so frightened. Morning brought false normalcy. Señoras Valdez and Dominguez were already in their rooms when we woke. Doors locked, no sound from within. Don Miguel showed us where cleaning supplies were kept, where to find sheets and towels, how to operate the ancient washing machine in the basement. "If you need anything," he said quietly, "call me. Don't disturb las señoras. Never disturb them during their rest." "Don Miguel," I asked, keeping my voice low, "how long have you worked here?" His face closed like a door slamming shut. "Too long." "Have other girls worked here before?" "Some." "What happened to them?" He looked at me with those sad, knowing eyes. "They left, and you should too, as soon as you can. But you won't, will you? You need the money too badly." Before I could respond, he walked away, his bent back disappearing into the garden. Carmen touched my arm. "Lucia, please, don't borrow trouble. We just need to get through 5 days. Then we go home, get paid, and never come back if it's too weird." "Okay." I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell her that leaving after 5 days might not be an option. Wanted to explain that sometimes traps don't snap shut immediately, they let you walk deeper inside first. But I didn't. Because I needed the money too. Because my brothers were hungry. Because my mother was working herself to death. Because I was already in the trap and I didn't know how deep it went. "Okay," I whispered. 5 days. I didn't know then that I was lying. I didn't know we wouldn't have 5 days. We'd be lucky to have 3. Day 1, June 15th, 2014. Afternoon. The first full day of work felt almost normal. Almost. Carmen and I divided the tasks between us. She took the kitchen and dining areas while I handled the bedrooms and bathrooms on the first floor. The second floor remained locked, forbidden territory that neither of us dared question yet. We worked in near silence, the only sounds our footsteps on old wooden floors and the occasional clink of cleaning supplies. But normal is a lie we tell ourselves when the truth is too terrible to face. The wrongness revealed itself in small ways at first, details that could be explained away if you tried hard enough, if you wanted to lie to yourself badly enough. Around 11 in the morning I was assigned to do the laundry. The washing machine sat in a basement room that smelled of mildew and something else, something sweet and chemical that reminded me of the funeral home where my grandfather's wake had been held. Formaldehyde, maybe, or something worse. The laundry basket sat in the corner, overflowing with clothes. I sorted through it mechanically, separating whites from colors, checking pockets out of habit. 3 white blouses caught my attention. Expensive fabric, delicate lace collars, the kind of shirts wealthy women wear to church or formal dinners. All 3 had bloodstains, not old rust-colored stains from an accident weeks ago, fresh blood, deep red, still slightly damp in places. The stains ran down from the collar and cuffs in streaks, as if someone had bled profusely while wearing them and hadn't bothered to rinse them immediately. I held one up to the weak basement light. The blood pattern was wrong. Not splatters from a cut finger or a nosebleed. These were deliberate smears, handprints, almost as if someone had run bloody fingers down the fabric purposefully. My hands started shaking. I dropped the blouse back into the basket and backed away, breath coming short and fast. There has to be an explanation. Maybe one of them cut themselves badly. Maybe they're clumsy. Maybe the basement door opened. Don Miguel stood at the top of the stairs, backlit by the brighter light from above his face in shadow. "Did you find something?" His voice was careful, neutral. "The blood," I managed. "On the shirts." "Is Señora Valdez hurt?" "Don't ask about the blood, Nina." He descended 2 steps, and I could see his face now. He looked older than he had yesterday, as if each hour in this house aged him months. "Just wash it. Use cold water. It comes out easier with cold water." "But you don't want to know where it comes from." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Trust me, some knowledge you can't unknow. Just wash the clothes and forget what you saw." He left before I could respond, the door clicking shut with a finality that made my stomach turn. I stood alone in that basement for a long moment, staring at those blood-stained blouses. 3 of them. 3 different occasions of whatever had caused that bleeding. And Don Miguel's voice when he said, "It comes out easier with cold water," the voice of someone who'd done this many times before. I should have run then. Should have grabbed Carmen and walked out the front door and never looked back, consequences be damned. But I didn't. I filled the sink with cold water and soap and began to wash, watching red clouds bloom and dissipate in the water over and over until the shirts ran clean. Day 2, June 16, 2014. Carmen had her own discovery that afternoon. I found her in the kitchen, staring at 5 bowls of dog food she'd prepared. The dogs sat in a semicircle outside the back door, visible through the screen, but none of them approached when she called. "Something's wrong with the food," she said when I joined her. "The dogs won't eat it." I looked at the bowls. Chunks of meat mixed with rice and vegetables, standard dog food. It looked fine. But the smell. "Let me see." I bent closer and immediately wished I hadn't. The sweet smell was overwhelming, like fruit rotting in the sun, like meat left too long in a warm car, like something that had been alive once and was now in the process of becoming something else entirely. Underneath the artificial sweetness was decay, pure and simple. "What kind of meat is this?" I asked. "I don't know. It was already in containers in the refrigerator. Señora Dominguez said to mix it with the dry food and vegetables." Carmen's voice wavered. "Lucia, what if it's—" "Don't." I cut her off before she could finish that thought, before she could voice the suspicion that was already forming in both our minds. "Don't go there." "But the dogs know. Look at them." The 5 dogs sat motionless, staring at the bowls with what I can only describe as fear. Not hunger, not even disinterest. Fear. They knew something we didn't, something their instincts screamed at them to avoid. "Maybe the meat is just spoiled," Carmen tried. "We should tell Señora Dominguez." But when Dominguez came down an hour later, moving with that eerie silence they both had, appearing rather than arriving, she only smiled at Carmen's concern. "The dogs will eat when they're hungry enough," she said pleasantly. "They're just being picky. Leave the bowls out. By tonight they'll have eaten every bite." The way she said every bite made my skin crawl. There was anticipation in her voice, eagerness. That evening I checked the bowls. They sat exactly where Carmen had left them untouched. The dogs had disappeared into the garden as far from the food as they could get. Whatever was in those bowls, the dogs would rather starve than eat it. Day 3, June 17th, 2014. By the third day, I'd started keeping notes. My grandmother had taught me that patterns matter, that small details could reveal larger truths if you paid attention. So I paid attention. I documented everything in a small notebook I kept hidden under my mattress. Day 1, June 15th. Arrived 11:47 a.m. Señoras already in rooms locked. No sound from upstairs all day. 3:00 p.m. Both emerged, drank thick red liquid, not wine too viscous. 6:00 p.m. Warning about garden 10:00 p.m. Dragging footsteps overhead. 2:00 a.m. Ritual in garden circle day 2, June 16th. Bloodstained shirts, fresh blood. Don Miguel's warning, spoiled meat for dogs. 3:00 p.m. Red liquid again, exact same time. 7:00 p.m. Dinner. Only drank no solid food. 4:00. 6:00 p.m. Scraping sounds. Second floor day 3, June 17th. More blood, 2 towels. Señoras never eat solid food. Move without making sound. Schedule exact every day. Scraping equals sign metal on stone. I showed the notebook to Carmen on the evening of day 3 after we'd finished our work and retreated to our small room. She read it slowly, her face growing paler with each entry. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "If they find this, they won't. But Carmen, look at the patterns. They're not normal. The schedule, the sounds, everything. Something is very wrong here. I know it's weird, but that doesn't mean we should. I'm not saying we leave right now. Just be aware, be ready. If something happens, we need to know how to get out fast." Carmen looked at me, conflict clear in her eyes. She wanted to believe everything was fine, wanted to finish the 5 days and go home with money for Diego, but she couldn't entirely deny what we'd both seen. "Okay," she said finally, "but don't do anything that might make them suspicious. We just need 2 more days." I nodded, but I was already planning, mapping escape routes, noting when the señoras were most distracted, cataloging which doors were locked and which weren't, because something in me knew we weren't going to get 2 more days. Night of June 17th, going into June 18th. 2:30 a.m. I woke suddenly, my heart already racing before my brain caught up to why. The crying had returned. Closer this time, much closer. I sat up in bed, straining to hear. Carmen slept soundly. She'd grown accustomed to the house's strange sounds, or maybe she'd just trained herself not to hear them. But I couldn't do that, wouldn't. The crying came from somewhere above us, not from the second floor, but from outside, from the roof maybe, or from something perched there. Then I heard the wings. The sound was like heavy canvas being shaken violently, thick, substantial, nothing like the flutter of normal bird wings. This was the sound of something large displacing air, something that shouldn't be able to fly but did anyway. I got up slowly and moved to the window. The narrow gap showed me a slice of the back garden, silver blue in the moonlight. For a moment, nothing moved. Then a shadow fell across the ground. Something was on the roof above me, something big enough to block the moonlight, something that shifted its weight with a scraping sound like claws on tile. The crying came again, but now I could make out the words beneath the sobs. "Mami, mami, por favor, ayúdame. Mami, mami, please, help me." A child's voice. A little boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old, crying for his mother with the desperation of someone who knows she won't come. My blood turned to ice. That voice, that pleading, terrified voice, it was coming from directly above my window, from whatever was perched on the roof. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to make myself smaller and visible. My heart hammered so hard, I thought it might burst. Every instinct I had screamed at me to hide, to close my eyes, to pretend I hadn't heard. But I looked up. The thing on the roof shifted position. I couldn't see it. The angle was wrong, but I could see its shadow on the garden ground. And shadows don't lie. The shadow had wings, massive wings spread wide easily 6 feet from tip to tip. But the body was wrong, too thick for a bird, too long. And the head was too large, too round, human-sized. As I watched, frozen in horror, the shadow's head turned, rotated a full 180 degrees like an owl's until it faced directly toward my window, toward me. The crying stopped abruptly, cut off mid-sob. In the sudden silence I heard something else, something worse, laughter, low and bubbling like someone drowning in their own throat, the laugh of something that had once been human but had forgotten how. Then it spoke, not in a child's voice anymore, but in something old and cold and hungry. Lucia. It knew my name. We see you, Lucia. We've always seen you. From the moment you walked through our gate, we knew you would come. The shadow on the ground spread its wings wider. The edges seemed to blur, to extend beyond what should be physically possible, until the entire garden was swallowed in darkness. You're going to open it, you know, the refrigerator. Your curiosity burns in you like a beacon. You won't be able to stop yourself. No, I whispered, but the word had no strength. Oh, yes. And when you do, when you see what we've collected, what we've preserved, you'll understand. You'll understand why we chose you. The thing launched itself from the roof. I heard the whoosh of displaced air, saw the shadow leave the ground, watched it circle once above the garden before disappearing into the night. I stood there for a long time, shaking, unable to move or think or do anything but repeat one thought over and over. It knows my name. It knows my name. It knows my name. When I finally crawled back into bed, I found something on my pillow that hadn't been there before. A feather, black and glossy as long as my forearm, still warm. Day 4, June 18th, 2014, morning. The next morning I told Carmen what I'd seen. I had to. The secret was eating me alive, and I couldn't carry it alone anymore. We were in the kitchen preparing breakfast that the Señoras wouldn't eat, and I spoke in a whisper even though we were alone. There's something on the roof at night, something that can speak. It knew my name. Carmen's hand stilled on the cutting board. Lucia, you were dreaming. You had a nightmare. I found a feather on my pillow, a black feather as long as my arm. That wasn't a dream. Maybe it fell from what, Carmen? There are no birds here. Haven't you noticed no birds anywhere? This entire property is empty of them, except for whatever that thing is at night. She put down her knife carefully, as if afraid sudden movements might trigger something. What are you saying? I'm saying the Señoras aren't what they appear to be. I'm saying whatever they do at night involves... I struggled to find words for something I could barely comprehend myself. Something not human. Stop? Carmen's voice was sharp now. Just stop. We have one more day, 24 hours. Then we get paid and we leave and we never have to think about this place again. Carmen, no. I don't want to hear it. You're letting this creepy old house get to you. Yes, the Señoras are weird. Yes, the schedule is strange, but that doesn't mean they're, what, witches, monsters? That's not real, Lucia. It can't be real. I wanted to show her the feather, wanted to make her understand, but I saw the fear beneath her denial, the desperate need to believe that the world still made sense, that there were rational explanations, that monsters only existed in stories. So I said nothing, and we finished preparing the breakfast in silence. But when Señora Dominguez came down at exactly 3 o'clock, as she did every day, timed to the minute, I noticed something I'd missed before. Her feet didn't quite touch the ground when she walked. There was a gap barely visible, just a fraction of an inch. She wasn't walking. She was floating so subtly that your brain dismissed it as a trick of the light, until you really looked, until you really saw. I looked at Carmen to see if she'd noticed, but she was focused on serving the red liquid, that viscous, dark red substance that the Señoras drank instead of coffee or tea. Thank you, dear, Dominguez said to Carmen, taking the cup. Her fingers brushed Carmen's hand, and I saw Carmen flinch. You're cold, Carmen said without thinking. Dominguez smiled. I run cold, always have, it's a family trait. But I'd seen Carmen's face in that moment of contact. She'd felt something worse than cold. She'd felt the absence of warmth, the void where heat and life should be. She'd felt death. Day 4, June 18th. Afternoon. That afternoon, while the Señoras were doing whatever they did in the second-floor rooms, those scraping sounds that never stopped, Don Miguel pulled me aside in the garden. "You need to leave," he said without preamble. "Tonight, both of you. Pack what you can carry and walk away. We need the money. The money isn't worth your lives, Nina, or worse than your lives." He gripped my shoulders with surprising strength for such an old man. "Listen to me. I've worked here for 30 years. I've seen things, terrible things, and I've seen girls like you come and go. Most leave before it's too late. Some don't. What happens to the ones who don't leave?" His face crumpled, aged a decade in an instant. "They join the collection." "What collection?" "On the second floor, in the refrigerator you were warned never to open." He released me and stepped back. "I'm too old and too broken to leave. They own me. But you still have a chance. Take it." "Don Miguel, what are they?" He looked toward the house, toward the darkened second-floor windows. "Las Brujas Voladoras. Flying witches. They've been around for centuries, passing down their knowledge, their rituals. They feed on the young. They transform at night. And they never stop hunting. But why us? Why hire us? Because they don't just want servants, Nina. They want ingredients for their next transformation. They need fresh tissue, young blood, and they prefer it from girls who won't be missed. Girls from poor families, desperate girls, girls who came here because they had no other choice." The words hit me like physical blows. Ingredients. They'd hired us to be ingredients. "Carmen's son," I whispered. "Diego. They mentioned him. They asked about him." Don Miguel's face went white. "How old? 18 months? Dios mío." He crossed himself. "They prefer children. The younger, the more potent. That's why they hired a mother. They want her child." Oh, everything clicked into place. The schedule, the blood, the collection upstairs, the thing on the roof that spoke with a child's voice. They'd been planning this from the beginning. We weren't employees, we were prey. And Diego was the real target. "I have to tell Carmen," I said, already turning toward the house. "She won't believe you. And if you tell her and she confronts them..." Don Miguel shook his head. "They'll move up their timeline. You'll both disappear tonight instead of tomorrow." "So what do? Play along. Act normal. But tonight when they go out to the garden for their ritual, that's when you run. The fence has a gap on the east side. I leave it that way on purpose. Run through there and don't stop until you reach the highway." "What about you?" He smiled sadly. "I told you, I'm too old, too broken. But I can buy you time. When they realize you're gone, I'll tell them you went north toward Poza Rica. Give you a head start in the opposite direction." "Don Miguel, go now, before they notice us talking. And Lucia." He caught my arm one last time. "Whatever you hear tonight, whatever you see, don't stop running. They'll try to lure you back. They'll use voices, faces, promises. Don't listen. Just run." Night of June 18th, the dinner. I spent the rest of the afternoon in a fog of terror and indecision. Should I tell Carmen? Should I trust Don Miguel? Was any of this even real? Or had I finally lost my mind? But then dinner came, and I watched the Señoras sit at the table with us, something they'd never done before. "We wanted to dine with you tonight," Valdez said pleasantly, "to thank you for your hard work. You've been such good girls." They'd laid out a feast. Roasted chicken, rice, vegetables, fresh tortillas, flan for dessert. The kind of meal we never ate at home. Carmen's eyes lit up at the sight. But I noticed there were only 2 plates set, for Carmen and me. The Señoras had nothing. "Aren't you eating?" Carmen asked. "We already ate," Dominguez said. "This is for you. Please enjoy. You've earned it." Carmen needed no further encouragement. She began to eat, making small sounds of pleasure. I picked at my food, unable to shake the feeling that something was wrong. Valdez watched me. "You're not hungry, Lucia," the way she said my name, like she was tasting it, savoring it. "I'm fine. Just tired." "Of course. You've been working so hard, both of you." She turned to Carmen. "Tell me about your son. Diego, isn't it such a beautiful name?" Carmen's face lit up the way it always did when she talked about her baby. "He's wonderful, smart, happy. He just started walking last month. How precious. And he's staying with family. My mother-in-law, she doesn't like me much, but she adores Diego." "I'm sure she does." Valdez's smile widened. "Children that age are special, so full of life, so pure." Something in her tone made me look up sharply. There was hunger in her eyes, raw, undisguised hunger. "We should check on him," I said suddenly. "Carmen, why don't you call your mother-in-law, make sure everything's okay?" "I just called this morning." "I think you should call again." Carmen looked at me, confused by my urgency. "Okay." "If you think I do." She excused herself and went to our room where her phone had service. I was left alone with the two señoras. The silence stretched. They watched me with those two bright eyes, and I forced myself not to look away, to not show fear. "You're perceptive, Lucia," Valdez said finally. "More than most. Your grandmother's gift, I suspect. That ability to see patterns, to sense wrongness." "How did she know about my grandmother?" "You've already figured out some of our secrets, haven't you?" Dominguez added. I said nothing, kept my face neutral. "It's all right. We don't mind." Valdez leaned forward. "In fact, we appreciate it. Makes things more interesting. A hunt is no fun if the prey doesn't know it's being hunted." My blood froze. "We've been at this a very long time," she continued. "Centuries. And we've learned that some knowledge can't be prevented. Some people will always dig deeper, always ask questions like you." "So we've decided to save you the trouble of wondering," Dominguez said. "Tomorrow morning when we're resting, you'll go to the second floor. You'll enter my room, and you'll open the refrigerator." "I won't." "Yes, you will." Valdez's voice was certain. "Your curiosity is already eating you alive. You need to know, and we want you to know. We want you to understand what you're truly dealing with." Carmen returned, her face troubled. "That's weird. My mother-in-law isn't answering. I tried 3 times. "I'm sure everything's fine," Dominguez said smoothly. "Perhaps she's busy with the baby. You know how children that age demand constant attention." But I saw the look that passed between the two señoras. Satisfaction, anticipation. They'd already done something, already set something in motion, and we had no idea how to stop it. Night of June 18th, going into June 19th, 2:30 a.m. That night I didn't sleep, couldn't sleep. I lay in bed fully dressed, waiting for the señoras to go out to their garden ritual, waiting for our chance to escape. But midnight came and went. 1 a.m. passed. 2 a.m. The señoras never left their rooms. At 2:30 I heard footsteps, not above us, outside our door. "Lucia," Carmen whispered in the darkness. "Do you hear that?" I nodded, forgetting she couldn't see me. The footsteps stopped directly outside our room. Then came the sound of something scraping against wood, slowly, deliberately, like claws running along the doorframe. A voice spoke, multiple voices actually overlapping and echoing as if several people were speaking in unison. "Tomorrow, Lucia, tomorrow you'll see, tomorrow you'll understand, and then you'll belong to us, both of you, forever." The footsteps moved away. But we didn't move, didn't speak. Didn't even breathe loudly until we heard the distant sound of doors closing upstairs. "Lucia," Carmen's voice was very small. "What's happening?" "We're leaving," I said. "Now, right now." "But, no buts. Get your things, only what you can carry. We're leaving and we're never coming back." For once she didn't argue. She'd finally felt what I'd been feeling all along. She'd finally understood that something in this house was very terribly wrong. We packed in darkness and silence, moving like ghosts ourselves. I grabbed my notebook from under the mattress. Carmen took a small bag with her clothes and the photograph of Diego she kept by her bed. I opened our door slowly, praying it wouldn't creak. The hallway was dark and empty. We crept toward the kitchen, toward the back door, toward freedom. We were 3 steps from the exit when the lights came on. Señora Valdez stood in the kitchen doorway. She wasn't blocking our path, she was just standing there smiling. "Leaving so soon?" she asked. "But you haven't seen the collection yet. You haven't opened the refrigerator. Don't you want to know what we've been preparing?" "Let us go," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We'll leave. We won't tell anyone. Just let us walk out that door." "Oh, we'll let you go, eventually. But first," she glanced up at the ceiling, "first you need to see. You need to understand. Come." It wasn't a request. She turned and walked toward the stairs. And despite every instinct screaming at us to run, despite knowing it was a trap, despite everything, we followed. Because sometimes you need to see the monster before you can truly understand how to escape it. And sometimes seeing the monster means you never escape at all. The stairs creaked under our feet like bones breaking. Each step took us deeper into the heart of something ancient and malevolent, something that had been waiting patiently for us to walk into its open mouth. Señora Valdez glided ahead of us, and I mean glided her feet, making no sound, her body moving with an unnatural smoothness that human joints simply couldn't achieve. Behind us, I heard the soft click of the back door locking itself. Señora Dominguez had appeared from nowhere to seal our only exit. We were trapped between them now. Prey in a corridor with predators at both ends. The second-floor hallway was longer than it should have been. 5 doors lined the passage, 4 standing open to reveal empty rooms, stripped bare of furniture walls, stained with shapes I didn't want to examine too closely. The 5th door, Valdez's room, stood closed. "I know what you're thinking," Valdez said without turning around. Her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You're wondering why we're showing you this. Why we don't just kill you now and be done with it." She stopped at her door, hand resting on the knob. "The answer is simple. We want you to understand. We want you to carry the knowledge of what we are, what we've done, what we're capable of. Because fear without understanding is just noise. But fear with understanding." She turned to face us, and in the dim hallway light her eyes reflected like an animal's. "That's exquisite." "You're insane," Carmen whispered. "No, child. We're hungry. There's a difference." Valdez opened the door. "Come, let me show you what hunger looks like after 500 years. The room beyond was clinical, cold, utterly wrong. White walls that seemed to glow with their own sickly luminescence. Fluorescent lights that hummed with a frequency just below hearing, setting teeth on edge. The temperature was at least 20 degrees colder than the hallway, our breath immediately visible in small clouds. No windows, no decorations, nothing human. Just 3 objects: an altar covered in black candles and symbols carved into wood, a large mirror draped in red fabric, and in the far corner, a small white refrigerator that looked absurdly mundane in this nightmare space. The refrigerator wasn't plugged in. I could see the cord lying coiled on the floor nearby. Yet, when Carmen inadvertently touched it while trying to steady herself, she jerked her hand back with a gasp. "It's freezing! How is it freezing?" "Some things don't need electricity," Dominguez said from behind us. She'd followed us up, closing off any hope of retreat. "Some things run on older power." Valdez walked to the altar. "Do you know what the worst part of immortality is? The hunger. The constant gnawing hunger that never stops, never sleeps, never gives you peace." She picked up one of the black candles unlit. "We've learned to manage it over the centuries, learned the rituals, the transformations, the harvesting. Every 13 months we need fresh tissue, young tissue. It sustains us, keeps us strong, keeps us flying." Flying. So Don Miguel had been right. "The collection in the refrigerator represents decades of work," Valdez continued. "Each piece carefully preserved, each one taken at the precise moment for maximum efficacy." My stomach turned. "You're talking about murder, about children. Murder's such a limited word. We prefer to think of it as transformation. Their short lives fuel our long ones. Nothing is wasted." "You're monsters," I breathed. Valdez smiled. "Finally, yes, we are. And now that you understand that, she gestured toward the refrigerator, go ahead, open it. See what 30 years of collection looks like? I looked at Carmen. Her face was white as chalk, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. She was thinking about Diego. I won't, I said. Then we'll open it for you. Dominguez moved past us toward the refrigerator. Because you need to see. Her hand closed on the handle. Last chance to look away, but you won't. Humans never do. She was right. As the door swung open and pale blue light spilled out, I couldn't stop myself from looking. The first thing I saw were the jars. 3 large glass containers lined the top shelf, each filled with clear preservation fluid. Floating in the first jar was a small human heart no bigger than my fist, still red and perfect. A label read, Miguel H. Corazon, 1987, usado, used. The second jar held a pair of eyes, brown eyes that still seemed to see. Ana R. Ojos, 2005, usado. The third jar contained a tongue pink and preserved. Carlos M. Lengua, 2008, reserva, reserve. The second shelf held plastic bags filled with tissue samples. Small organs preserved chunks of flesh, things that had once been inside living bodies, each labeled with a name, a date, a purpose. The third shelf was bones, arranged in a wooden box with separate compartments, tiny finger bones. Fragments of ribs, small vertebrae, all cleaned and organized with meticulous care. Underneath the bones, locks of hair tied with different colored ribbons, 9 different colors. 9 different children, and at the bottom of the refrigerator, a book. Thick leather binding pages yellowed with age. Dominguez lifted it out reverently. The grimoire, she said, passed down through our line for 500 years, every ritual, every transformation, every successful harvest documented. She opened it to a page showing detailed anatomical drawings of children marked with notes about when to harvest which organs. Times, dates, moon phases, all calculated with scientific precision. This is what we wanted you to see, Valdez said. When we come for you, you'll understand exactly what's happening, and that knowing will make your fear taste divine. Carmen broke. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing, repeating Diego's name over and over. Don't worry about your son, Dominguez said. We'll wait. Let him grow. He's too young now. The casual cruelty was somehow worse than immediate violence. Of course we'll need someone to raise him, Valdez added. Don Miguel has done this for us before. Don Miguel, the sad-eyed gardener who tried to warn us. He'd been their accomplice raising children for slaughter. You're going to let us go, I said suddenly. You need permission. You need us to surrender. Valdez's smile faltered. I'd guessed right. But we're not surrendering, I continued, pulling Carmen to her feet. We're walking out of here. You can't, Dominguez began. Try to stop us and break your own rules, I challenged. You can hunt, you can threaten, but you can't take an unwilling soul directly. You need consent. The temperature in the room dropped another 10 degrees. Clever girl, Valdez said, her voice losing all pretense of humanity. But there are so many ways to obtain consent, and we have all night. She gestured toward the altar. The black candles burst into flame simultaneously. Let's see how long your defiance lasts. The red fabric covering the mirror began to slip. Don't look at the mirror, I shouted, grabbing Carmen and turning her away. But I'd already seen what was underneath. Not glass reflecting the room, glass reflecting somewhere else, somewhere dark and full of things that moved with hunger. The fabric fell completely. The mirror showed a void, pure darkness with depth and dimension, and in that darkness shapes moved, massive shapes with wings and heads that kept shifting. The space between, Dominguez explained, where we keep our true forms. Would you like to see? The shapes pressed closer to the surface. I could see faces, now dozens of them, all sharing the same core wrongness, and among them smaller faces, children's faces, pale and empty and eternally terrified. Every child we've harvested, Valdez said. They don't die. They become part of us. Their voices fuel our transformations. They're with us, Forever. One child's face pressed against the mirror from inside, mouth open in a silent scream. Miguel H. The 7-year-old from 1987. You'll join them, Dominguez promised. The mirror's surface began to ripple. Something was trying to come through. I did the only thing I could think of. I ran at the altar and swept everything off at candles, symbols, carved wooden bowls. They clattered across the floor, black wax splattering, flames guttering out. Both women shrieked not human sounds, but the cries of birds being burned alive. Foolish, Valdez's form began to distort, bones shifting under skin. You've broken the binding. Destroyed your power focus, I finished. My grandmother knew about altars. It won't save you, Dominguez hissed. Her face was stretching, jaw elongating. It just means we'll hunt you the old way. The mirror shattered from within. Darkness poured out, pure absence of light consuming everything it touched. Carmen screamed. So did I. We ran for the door, but Valdez was already there, blocking our path. Except she wasn't entirely Valdez anymore. Her arms had become wings covered in feathers that looked more like human hair. Run! Don Miguel's voice from below. Coronahora! The door burst open, kicked in from outside. The old gardener stood there with a machete in his hands and tears streaming down his face. Go! He shouted. I'll hold them. You can't, I began. 30 years I've helped them. Let me do one good thing. Go! He charged at Valdez. She turned to face him, wings spreading fully, transformed, a massive bird-woman hybrid, 7 feet tall, with human hands tipped with talons and a beak filled with human teeth. Don Miguel swung the machete. It connected with one wing. Valdez screamed. Run! Don Miguel shouted again. We ran. Down the stairs, Carmen sobbing and stumbling, me pulling her along. Behind us, sounds of combat, Don Miguel fighting something that shouldn't exist. The back door stood open. We burst through into the garden where Señora Dominguez waited. She stood in her transformed state, another bird woman, broader than Valdez feathers, gleaming like oil. Did you really think it would be that easy? She spoke without moving her beak. Did you think an old man could stop us? From the house, Don Miguel screamed. Then silence. He was dead. I'll make you a deal, Dominguez said. One of you can go. One stays. Choose. Carmen and I looked at each other. I saw the calculation in her eyes. Diego needed her. Me, Carmen said. Take me. Let Lucia go. No. Please, she begged. My baby needs someone to warn his grandmother. Promise me, Lucia. Promise you'll keep Diego safe. I can't let you. You don't have a choice. She turned to Dominguez. I'll stay. Willing. I consent. Just let her go. Carmen, no. Accepted, Dominguez said. One willing sacrifice. The other may leave. You have until I count to 10. Go, Carmen whispered. For Diego. 1, 2. I ran. God forgive me, I ran. I left my friend standing there with a monster, and I ran toward that gap in the fence. 5, 6. Behind me, Carmen started to pray, her voice steady despite her terror. 7, 8. I reached the fence, found the gap, squeezed through. 9. I was through, standing on the other side, free. 10. I turned back, couldn't help it. Carmen stood with her arms outstretched, still praying. Dominguez circled her slowly. Then Valdez emerged from the house, still transformed, blood on her wings. Don Miguel's blood. Both witches struck simultaneously. Carmen fell. I couldn't watch what they did next. Couldn't see. I turned and ran through the darkness until I reached the highway. A truck stopped. An older woman with kind eyes took one look at me and said, "Get in." She drove for 30 minutes in silence before pulling over at a small church. "You need sanctuary," she said. "One night, tomorrow you leave, far away, and never return." "How did you know?" She rolled up her sleeve. Scars ran down her forearm, 4 parallel lines like claw marks. "I escaped them too," she said quietly. 40 years ago, my sister didn't make it. What are they? Old. Older than Mexico. Their hunger given form. Death that walks like a woman until the moon rises. She pressed something into my hand, a small silver cross. If it grows cold, they're near. Get to consecrated ground immediately. Why are you helping me? Because someone helped me once. She looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. You can't kill them. All you can do is survive. She drove away, leaving me at the church as dawn broke, 10 years later. November 15th, 2024. I moved to Mexico City, changed my name legally from Lucia Martinez to Ana Solis, cut my hair, changed how I dressed, tried to become someone else. I became a social worker specializing in missing children cases. Maybe it was penance. Maybe I thought if I saved enough children it would balance out the ones I couldn't save. The work was hard, heartbreaking, but it was real. I helped reunite families, track down runaways, save dozens of kids over the years. It should have been enough. Should have given me peace. But they were always there at the edge of my awareness. On full moon nights, I'd wake at exactly 3 a.m. with my heart pounding. Sometimes I'd hear wings outside my apartment window, even though I lived on the 8th floor. The silver cross Señora Rosa, the woman who'd rescued me, had given me, hung around my neck constantly. It had grown cold exactly 7 times over those 10 years. 7 times I'd felt them nearby. 7 times I'd fled to churches until the cross warmed again. I'd learned to survive, but survival isn't living. The call came while I was at work reviewing case files. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello. Silence. Then breathing. Multiple people breathing in overlapping rhythms. Lucia! Multiple voices in unison. Did you really think we'd forgotten you? I hung up immediately, hands shaking. It rang again. I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. What I heard made my blood freeze. Children's voices, dozens of them, chanting, Ven a casa Lucia, tu familia te está esperando. Come home, Lucia. Your family is waiting. They'd found me. After 10 years, they'd found me. I couldn't go back to my apartment. The cross was ice cold. They were there. I went to Catedral Metropolitana. The priest let me stay without questions. I sat in candlelight trying to figure out what to do. How had they found me? Then I remembered 3 days ago I'd recorded my story, uploaded it to YouTube as insurance, mentioned details, names, locations. I'd drawn a map to myself. My phone buzzed. A photo, taken from above my apartment building, from the air. Timestamp 15 minutes ago. Second message. We know where you live. We know where your mother lives in Puebla. Should we visit them first? They were threatening my family. Unless I went back. I spent 3 days in the church searching for options. An old curandera in Oaxaca told me the only way to break a Brujas curse was to face them on sacred ground during the new moon. But survival is not guaranteed, she warned. They've been killing for centuries. What if I keep running? Then they'll take everyone you love one by one until you surrender. I had 2 choices: face them and probably die, or run and watch everyone I love die first. Carmen had made her choice 10 years ago. She'd sacrificed herself so I could warn others, protect Diego. But I hadn't protected anyone. Diego had disappeared 3 months after that night taken during September 2014. His grandmother died of a heart attack 6 months later. Everyone touched by that house had suffered. Everyone except me. I'd been allowed to survive, to carry the knowledge and guilt. They'd been feeding on my fear for 10 years, but now they wanted the final course. Well, I was going to give them something else, a fight. November 18th, 2024. I made my decision. I would go back, end this. I spent 2 days gathering supplies, blessed salt, holy water, silver, herbs, prayers in my grandmother's hand. I bought a gun, carved crosses into the bullets, and I made recordings, videos explaining everything, uploaded them with dead man switches. If I didn't log in every 24 hours, they'd go public. If I died, the truth would survive. November 19th. I visited my mother in Puebla, told her I loved her, hugged my brothers. My mother held my face. You're going to do something dangerous. I have to. Will you come back? I wanted to lie. I don't know. Probably not. She pulled me into a fierce hug. Then kill it before it kills you. make it regret ever touching my daughter. I'll try. Don't try. Do. She pressed my grandmother's rosary into my hand. She always said you had the sight, that you'd need this someday. Thank you, Mama. Come back to me, mija, or don't come back at all. Don't let them make you into something else. I promise. It was the last time I saw my mother. November 20th, 2024. I arrived in Veracruz. The new moon was in 2 days. I visited the church where the priest had helped me 10 years ago. He was still there. I remember you, he said. You're going back. How did you know? Because they always come back. Most don't return. The ones who do aren't quite themselves anymore. I need you to bless these. I showed him my supplies. He did so murmuring prayers. When finished, he said, This won't be enough. Whatever you're fighting is old. These blessings might slow it, but won't stop it. I know, but it's all I have. Then I'll pray for you. I spent 2 days in reconnaissance. Talked to people in surrounding towns about missing children, strange occurrences. What I learned chilled me. The disappearances hadn't stopped. Over 10 years, at least 15 children had vanished. All ages 3 to 7, all from poor families, all unsolved. One child every 8 to 10 months, regular as clockwork. I also learned about Don Miguel, found 2 weeks after that night in a ravine, official cause fall. But the autopsy showed massive trauma inconsistent with a 20-foot drop. They'd carried him high and dropped him, a warning. Carmen's body was found on the highway. But a retired detective shared details the police hadn't released. The body was wrong, he said, hands shaking. Like surgery, without caring about being neat, missing organs. And her face, he trailed off, her face was frozen in terror. I still dream about it. Diego's case remained open, unsolved. His grandmother dead from grief. Everyone touched by that house had suffered, except me, until now. November 22nd, 2024, new moon, 3:00 a.m. I stood outside the iron gate. The house looked exactly the same. The gate hung open. They knew I was coming. I checked my supplies one last time, blessed salt, holy water, silver rosary, gun with carved bullets, digital recorder running. Okay, Lucia, I whispered, time to finish this. I walked through the gate. The garden was overgrown, no Don Miguel to maintain it. The dogs were gone. The place had an air of abandonment. But the house wasn't dying, it was waiting. The front door stood open. I walked inside. A photograph sat on the table by the door, of me, taken yesterday. Next to it a note, Welcome home, Lucia, we've been waiting. Come upstairs. I crumpled the photo. I'm here, let's finish this. Footsteps above me, quick, eager, laughter, multiple voices. I climbed the stairs. The hallway stretched before me. 5 doors, 4 open, 1 closed. Valdez's room. I kicked the door open. The room had changed. Walls covered in symbols drawn in dried blood. The altar rebuilt bigger than before, covered in black candles that burst into flame as I entered. The mirror uncovered, showing that void where shapes moved. And in the center stood Valdez and Dominguez. Not in human forms, not even birdwoman forms. Something else. 10 feet tall forms constantly shifting between bird and human and nightmare. Wings that were also arms, faces that kept changing, eyes that multiplied and divided. Welcome back, Lucia, they said in unison. We've been practicing, growing stronger. Would you like to see? The refrigerator door swung open by itself, packed full. Dozens of jars, bags, boxes, all labeled, all preserved. Your fear fed us well, Valdez's part said. Every nightmare you had, every moment of terror, we felt it, tasted it, drew power from it. Then you won't mind if I stop, I said, and through the blessed salt, it hit them. They shrieked a sound that shattered every window. Smoke rose where the salt touched their forms, bubbling, but they didn't retreat, just laughed through the pain. Clever, but not enough. We've survived worse. Because I'm not trying to stop you, I said. I'm trying to trap you. I poured holy water in a circle around myself, speaking the prayer my grandmother had taught me. The witches lunged, but too late. The circle closed. "This isn't holy ground," Dominguez screamed. "Your circle means nothing." "You're right," I agreed. "But I'm not staying here." I pulled out my phone and called the police. "Help, they're trying to kill me." The address is... They shattered the phone, but the call had connected. Police would come. They'd find the refrigerator, the evidence. "You think human law will stop us?" Valdez laughed. "We'll tell them the jars are medical samples. They'll believe us." "Maybe," I said. "But I've documented everything. Uploaded it. If I die here, it goes public. Photos, testimony, evidence. You'll be famous." "Every occultist will come for you." They stopped, looked at each other. "You're bluffing. Check YouTube, search Brujas, Veracruz." I could see them hesitate. They'd survived by staying hidden. But the internet changed that. "Even if we kill you now," I continued, "the damage is done." "Then we'll kill everyone who watches," Dominguez said. "No," said a voice from the doorway. "You don't." Señora Rosa stood there, the woman who'd rescued me. Older, frailer, but eyes sharp. Behind her a dozen other women, all elderly, all wearing crosses. "The survivors," Rosa explained. "Every woman who escaped you over 40 years. We've been watching, waiting. We knew eventually you'd call someone back." "You can't stop us," Valdez shrieked. "True," Rosa agreed. "But we're old women who know your patterns, who've studied you while you ignored us." She smiled grimly. "That was your mistake." The women began to chant, in Latin, a prayer older than anything I'd heard. The temperature rose, symbols on walls began to glow. "You built your altar on cursed ground," Rosa said, "ground soaked in innocent blood. You thought that made you stronger. But every death was a chain, every sacrifice another binding, and now we're calling them due." The mirror exploded, but instead of darkness, light flooded in. Pure, white, cleansing light. And in that light the children, all the children whose souls had been trapped, Miguel and Ana and Carlos and Diego and all the others, they'd been waiting, and now they were free and angry. The children swarmed the witch's tiny hands, grabbing, pulling, tearing. The witches screamed not in rage but terror. "You ate us," Miguel's voice. "You kept us trapped. Now we take yours," Diego joined in. The witches tried to fight, to transform, to escape, but the light held them, the children held them. Slowly, piece by piece, they began to dissolve, not dying, being unmade, erased. "No!" Valdez screamed. "We are eternal, we cannot—" 543 years? Rosa interrupted. "I found your grimoire, learned your history. You were once human. You chose power over humanity. Now you pay." The witches' screams rose to impossible pitch. The house shook. Cracks appeared in walls. "Everyone out!" Rosa shouted. "The house is coming down! We ran, me Rosa, the other survivors, fleeing as the structure collapsed." Behind us the witches' screams cut off abruptly, then silence. We made it outside as the house imploded, falling in on itself. Dust exploded outward. When it settled, nothing remained, just rubble, foundation and broken walls. The house that had stood for over a century was gone, and with it the witches. The police arrived 10 minutes later, found us standing in front of ruins covered in dust. We told them the house had collapsed, structural failure. We'd been investigating for historical purposes. They believed us. Why wouldn't they? They searched the rubble, found nothing. The collapse had buried or destroyed everything. Or maybe the magic had ended, turning everything to dust. Either way, the evidence was gone, but we knew the truth. 3 weeks later, December 13th, 2024. The cross around my neck has stayed warm. No cold spells, no sense of being watched, no wings in the night. I think they're really gone. The videos I posted have gotten over 1 million views, some believe. Most think it's fiction. That's fine. The point was awareness. I've met with the other survivors several times. We're forming a network, sharing information about other threats. We call ourselves Las Supervivientes, the survivors, and we're going to make sure no one else goes through what we did. I've returned to my work, helping children, reuniting families, living, not just surviving. My mother calls me every day now. My brothers are doing well. Life is slowly becoming normal again. Carmen is gone. Don Miguel is gone. Diego is gone. But their sacrifices weren't in vain. Because of them, the witches are destroyed. Because of them, no more children will disappear from those rural towns. I carry their memory with me, their courage, their sacrifice, and I've learned something my grandmother tried to teach me. Sometimes the sight isn't a curse. Sometimes it's a gift that lets you see danger before it's too late. That lets you save others, even if you can't save everyone. I'll never forget what I saw in that house. The jars, the bones, the mirror, the grimoire. But I also won't let those memories define me. I'm more than my trauma, more than my fear. I'm a survivor, and I'm going to live like one. Final message. This is Ana Solis, formerly Lucia Martinez, recording on December 13th, 2024. If you're watching this, I'm still alive, still surviving, actually living now. The house near Poza Rica, Veracruz is gone. The witches are destroyed, but there may be others like them out there. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it is wrong. Don't accept jobs that pay too well. Don't ignore warnings from people who've been there before. And if you encounter something supernatural, remember, you're not powerless. You're not alone. There are others who've survived. Reach out, connect, fight back. Evil exists, but so does courage. So does community. So does hope. Stay safe. And remember, survivors don't just endure. They teach, they warn, they protect the next generation. That's what I'm doing now. And if you ever need help, you know where to find us.